It's hard to say what is my favorite dessert. This lemon tart is very special to me. It's the only recipe that I've included in 2 of my cookbooks, the French Laundry and Bouchon, because I love it so much. It's a recipe that I've been doing since the early 80s when I've had one of my first restaurants in New York City called Raquel, and I've been doing this recipe ever since. There's several reasons I love it, not just because of the texture, the lemon, but also this crust. And this crust is unique in a couple of ways. Number one, it's unique because it doesn't have to be rolled. It's actually going to be pressed into the tart pan, much like a cookie dough. And the second thing, of course, is our pine nuts. And the pine nuts add that sweetness, textural thing to it that is so compelling in this lemon tart. We're starting with raw pine nuts because when we bake the tart, the nuts will become a little bit roasted and give it another flavor and texture. So we begin by putting our nuts in a food processor. And pulse it. Now we want to pulse it just about halfway. We don't want to continue pulsing it. We're going to remove that oil from the nut. Drawing the oil out is not what we want to do. We want to start to break them up, and then we want to add our flour. And our sugar. And then we're going to continue to grind it. Now, any oil that's coming out of the nuts is going to be absorbed by the flour. So let's look at that. Yeah. So I could just feel the texture of the nut barely in there. And that's what we want to be. We have a bench scraper here to help us move our dough around. We're going to go ahead and dump that out on our clean working surface. If you want to, you can use a piece of parchment paper to work on. I'm just going to work right on the marble here. And then I'll make my well just like I'm making any dough. Add 1 whole egg. Now, this recipe makes enough for 3 tarts, and primarily because we're using 1 egg. So it's hard. It would be hard to do it only for 1 tart because we'd have to break that egg into a third. So the great thing about it is that you can freeze your dough and have it for a later use. You can freeze your dough and, of course, make your lemon tart every week for the next 3 weeks. So the butter, as you can see, is pretty soft. I'll just start mixing, bringing my flour into it as I'm squeezing. My bench scraper. This will take a few minutes. Just be patient with it. It may seem like it's dry. As you work it more, that butter will go into that. I always like to make these by hand. You can try to do it completely in your food processor. There's something about using my hands that I enjoy very much, especially in making different doughs. Just gently working that butter into the pine nut and the flour. I have more surface on the heel of my hand, which gives me more ability to mix it together, and I can put more pressure on the heel of my hand as well. You can also just get your children involved in this and let them do it. You can see how it's really starting to come together now. Continue to work it in. Almost there. Okay, clean up my bench. Okay, our pine nut crust, ready to go. We'll divide this in thirds. Just form it in a circle so you have something to begin with. You can put these in a resealable bag, freezer bag, and put them in your freezer for that tart for next week. Okay, there we have 3 crusts ready for the tarts. There's enough butter in here that we don't have to butter and flour our tart pan, but also this tart pan is a non-stick. So we're just going to begin pressing it in to the corners. You want to pay attention to the thickness of it. You can see, we're always just going to take that little bit off. Continue to go around. I think most of you have the capacity to do this fairly easy. Piecing it together. Looking at the top as well to see where that thickness is on the top. And making sure that it's even, or as even as I possibly get it all the way down to the bottom. Okay, I feel good about that. I'll just start with the bottom. See how I'm pushing, continuously expanding that. If I see a thin spot there or there, so a little bit of dough. The corners, making sure my corners don't get too thick. That's the The part that you want to pay most attention to is those edges where the side meets the bottom. Now, you know there's fat in here, so working in a hot kitchen may be a little bit of a challenge, so make sure that your environment is conducive to rolling out or pressing in a dough or rolling out doughs when there's fat concerned. When we're working with doughs with butter in them, we don't want to be working in a hot kitchen. The butter will melt quickly, separate, and that's not what we want. I'll trim off my sides here. Okay, we're just about there. Just smooth out the top. Move that area where you tore it. Give it a nice finished look. And something I learned from my pastry chef is we take a little glass, or in this case we have a little cruet, and we're just gonna press it in at the edge, ever so slightly. We go on this side here, so. And pressing it down, pushing forward slightly. Making sure that edge is in. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and bake our tart shell in a sheet pan. We have our oven set to 350 degrees. There it goes. Gonna bake it in our oven. Our tart shell's baking. It's probably ready now. 350, around 17 to 20 minutes. A beautiful golden brown. We want that color that we love so much. Creates that texture and those really great flavors. I need to adjust my shelf here to broil it because we're gonna come back after we make our sabayon and caramelize the top of this. On broil, we always want to leave our oven cracked a little bit. Now you notice how it's really kind of evened out. Those little patches that I put in there are now nice and smooth. We've got a great side, and you can see the separation because it did shrink slightly from the side. Making our sabayon is fairly easy. We just need to pay attention. You've heard me say that before. Paying attention is really important when we're cooking. We have 2 whole eggs and 2 egg yolks and our sugar. I'm going to start to whisk that over a double boiler. And we can adjust our temperature from high to low. We don't need it boiling rapidly because we have that same temperature. As long as it's steaming, as long as we get steam out of there, we're at that constant temperature. You want to have a side towel ready to go. It's going to start to get warm. It'll start to thin out as it cooks and as we beat it. So sabayon in itself is a very classic Italian preparation where they take egg yolk, sugar, and Marsala wine. And then they pour it over fresh fruit. In this case, we're not doing that. We have whole eggs as well. A strong arm for this. I start to feel it. I can feel the temperature. Our pastry chefs are very used to this and have acquired the right muscles to complete this task. You can see it's starting to get a little thick as I'm drawing my whisk through, and I can start to see the lines from the whisk as it draws through. That's an important thing to recognize. Because when we first see that, we know it's getting thicker and cooking. Starting to hold a little bit of a ribbon, which is where we want it to be. Then we're going to add a third of our lemon juice. It's going to thin out again, and we're going to cook it back to the ribbon stage one more time. We still have our steam going underneath, so the temperature is good. I always try with my left hand and realize it doesn't work that well. A second time of our lemon juice. Continually whisking it thinned out again. You notice I'm using that figure 8 motion as much as I can. My arm gets a little tired right here, so I try to do it with my wrist. Ribbon. You see a nice ribbon again. Add my last of my lemon juice, so 3 times with the lemon juice. I've used a large bowl because, as you see, sometimes we get a little bit of splatter over. And it does grow in volume quite a bit. Getting nice and thick. Once again, you can start to see that as I draw my whisk through it, how the line holds. I can feel it too. It's becoming a little more difficult to pass through. I'm going to take it off just for a second. Look at it. Almost, just a little more. Okay. I'll go ahead and add my butter. Back over the heat. Turn it way down now. And I just want to emulsify my butter into the sabayon. Should be ready there. Just checking for any lumps of butter. I don't see any. Turn my fire off. Then we're going to go ahead and pour our sabayon into our pine nut crust. Get all that goodness out of there. Okay. Now, while it's still warm, we're going to take it back over, put it underneath our broiler. I see little air bubbles there, so I'm just going to lightly tap those out. Okay, so you see how those air bubbles are diminishing? Okay. We're going to take it over to the broiler. So we see we're starting to get a nice coloration here. Starting to get some nice color on our broiler here. You can see a little bit of wafts of smoke coming out of it from the caramelization of the sugar. And there we go. Here we go. We have our beautiful lemon sabayon pine nut crust tart. We'll let that set for about an hour before we slice it. Of course, after that, it'll be gone.